Hi boys, this is a video giving you the solutions to the Python challenges that you're being asked to do over the last couple of weeks. So first of all, if you go into 101computing.net, go to Python challenges up here and then beginner. These are the ones that we've started with. And we began with the Jack and the Beanstalk. So if we go on to there. Now the idea about this particular problem is this is the algorithm, okay, and this is in a flow chart. And the idea is to go through the flow chart and convert this to Python. Now, an output is a print statement. These are general assignment statements. Here we're inputting an integer. Notice the shapes, parallelogram are input, rectangles are assignments or processes. Another input here, so output, assignment, input, output. And then this is a for loop, and we'll deal with that in a minute. And then inside the for loop that does some things. It keeps going around this loop a known number of times from 2 to hours. And our goal is to translate that into Python. Okay, so I've got my code here, so I'm going to go through and compare my code here with the diagram. So the first thing, let's take screenshots of these, because then I can put the diagram next to my code and I can show you how that works. So I'm going to go into OneNote and I'm going to go into your OneNote here. And I will temporarily go into the content library, and you can see here, this is where my solution is. Now I'm going to put my solution in two ways. One is the screenshot of the solution, and the other one is just the text. So what you can do is you can copy this text to the clipboard and then paste it into the 101 Computing website. What I'm also going to do here is to create a screenshot of the actual problem, this diagram here. So let's take that. Here we go. Back to OneNote again. And then we can talk about these side by side, can't we? So okay, so let's have a look at these, hopefully, if I can, side by side. Here. Oh, okay. Let's drag that up there. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at here is this output here. And the output is a print statement. So we'll see that that output statement is just printing the words, the magic beanstalk. And remember, when we print out a string of characters, it needs to be between quotes. You can either use double quotes or single quotes in Python. You'll typically see double quotes in this. So that's the equivalent of that. That output changes to a print. Then we've got height equals 100. That's an assignment. That doesn't change at all in Python, except for I've done this as 100.0. And there's a reason for that, because this 100.0 is a floating point version of 100, which is an integer. Now you'll see here that we're multiplying something by 1.5. Now this height here is being multiplied by 1.5, meaning that we're going to get decimals eventually. Okay, so that's why I've put 0.0 in here, to indicate to Python that height is a floating point number rather than an integer. Back over to the diagram, the next bit of the diagram. So we've done these two. Now we're doing this input here. And hours is an integer. And why do we know it's an integer? Well, if we look back at the website, you will see hours in this table are quite clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 integers. Okay, so in the code, when I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that my variable called hours here is an integer of the input, and this is the prompt, enter the number of hours, e.g. 12. So that's what it says in there. It says input, enter a number of hours, e.g. 12, and in Python we also have this thing called input, but hours is going to be an integer. So in Python we've got to make sure that our input is an integer rather than a string, because in Python an input gives you a string. So that's that, and that's why we've got this int here. Okay, back to the diagram again. The next bit is an output, which is just a print statement, and it's going to say, after 1 hour, the beanstalk was 100 centimeters tall. Well, that 100 comes from this variable, hours. Okay, that's what that is. So rather than put in 100 explicitly, I'm going to use the variable, so that if I do change this in my program somewhere, maybe that on a different day starts off at 200, I would like that to say after 1 hour the beanstalk was 200 centimeters tall. So if we go back to our code here, here's our print statement. It says print open bracket and a string, after 1 hour the height of the beanstalk is space, end the string, and then I'm going to use string concatenation. In other words, adding, like we did in Raptor, we're going to add to that this height variable. But height is a float, and in Python you're not allowed to add a string to a float. So in other words, I have to convert this to a string as well. So in order to add a string to something else, that something else has to be a string. So string, this has to be a string, and this has to be a string. So that's why I use str height rather than just height. Otherwise I'll get an error when I try and run it. Back to the diagram again. Here, this loop starts off at I and it's going to finish on hours. So let's say if I type 10 as the number of hours, I is going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's going to go round this loop 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And afterwards it's going to go up down to here. And in Python we do that with a for loop. So we got the word for, I, in range. So that we pretty much always do for I in range when we've got a certain number. This is our starting value, 2, and our ending value always has to be one more than the true ending value. And if you go to your Python cards, you will see here the range function takes 3 integer arguments. These are called the arguments. Where it starts from, and it starts from 0 if that's omitted. So if you haven't specified a start value, it starts from 0. And then the next bit is up to but not including, and this is a required, you must have this. So in our case, we want to go up to, but including the hour variable. So we need to make sure that we go one more than the hour variable because it's not going to include that value. Okay, so go back over to here. So for I in range, start at 2, and we want it to end at hours. So we must say hours plus 1. It's always one more than the ending value that you need. Back to your diagram again. What's happening in this for loop is we're setting height to be what the value it was before, multiply it by 1.5, and add 30. So that's just an assignment. So here comes our assignment, and notice the colon at the end of the for loop and the indentation for height equals height times 1.5 plus 30. And then back to the diagram again. What happens next inside the loop? We've just done this assignment, and now we're going to print. After so many hours, the beanstalk was so many centimeters tall. So remember, I is going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to say after 2 hours, the beanstalk was blah, 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 blah. After 3 hours, the beanstalk was. After 4 hours, the beanstalk was. So that's I is this variable here. And we're calculating the height each time. So we're making sure that we're at the height in there. So it's going to say after 2 hours, the beanstalk was, and then whatever the value of the height is, centimeters tall. So if we go back to our code again, that's what we're doing here. After, and then I is our integer, but that needs to be a string to add it to our string here. So after the string value of I, so after 2 hours the beanstalk was, then the height, centimeters tall. Okay. Then after, so this will go round and round and round and print all those different values of heights. Once we've been through from I is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, up to 10 or however many hours that we've specified, notice that this is not inside the loop. A bit like this diagram here, notice that this output is not inside the loop. So the loop goes here, round, back down again, up and back round again. And when we've got to the end, it then drops out and does this last bit. So that is why in our code, this print statement here on line 10 is not indented inside the loop. When we run this, this is what we get. So it says it prints out the magic beanstalk. We type in the number of hours that we want, e.g. 12. I type 12 as it happened, and it goes around the loop, and you can see this is our value of I, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I've got 12 of those, and then it gives me my height each time.